Some people want to change our K through 12 public school system into a system focused not so much on broader educational issues, but on job preparation, training, creating cogs for the corporate monster. We got to have a conversation about this, folks, and we will. We'll also talk today with Brooke Howard, a local artist, and with Zach Bales Henry, a local realtor.
Concept Studios. This is Webcast One Live.
Ed Fallon here, folks. Gateway Market and Cafe is your locally owned source for specialty groceries. Enjoy chef-crafted, prepared foods, artisan-baked goods, organic produce, specialty cheeses, and hand-selected wines and craft beer. Visit the lively cafe for breakfast, lunch, or dinner 7 days a week. Gateway Market is centrally located on the corner of Martin Luther King Jr. Parkway and Woodland Ave. Stop by or visit www.gatewaymarket.com for more details. That's Gateway Market, folks. Good food, great community.
Hello, Mid-American Energy.
I'm very concerned that you want to bill me an extra $5,000 to build a nuclear reactor. Do you know we're in the middle of a recession?
Oh, we were hoping you wouldn't hear about that until after the legislature had taken action.
Why not let your shareholders pick up the tab?
Oh, way too risky for our shareholders. We need you, our loyal customers, to pay for it.
Wait, let me see if I understand this. Mid-American wants to build a nuclear power plant in 10 or 20 years, and they want me to pay for it now?
That's right.
Well, I'll just take my business elsewhere.
Sorry, we're a monopoly. What we say goes.
I've heard nuclear power is more expensive than other sources.
Yes it is.
And I've heard there's no plan for how to dispose of nuclear waste.
We're looking at shooting it into the sun.
Well, I'm not going to sit back and let you make bad decisions with my money.
We're betting you will.
Stop Mid-American's power grab. Call your legislators today. 281-3371. 281-3371.
Paid for by Physicians for Social Responsibility.
Located in the heart of Beaverdale, Tally's offers speedy and affordable rooftop lunch, catering for events both large and small, innovative cuisine, as well as vegetarian and gluten-free menus. Come to Tally's for live music, dry-aged steaks, Sunday brunch, and all-you-can-eat ribs every Monday night. Tally's Restaurant, Bar, and Catering at 2712 Beaver Avenue. Call 279-2067. That's 279-2067.
It's time to think about upgrading the efficiency of your furnace and air conditioner. Leonard Tinker Heating and Cooling has provided honest, competent service for over 20 years. Whether it's your home or business, for repair work or to install a more energy-efficient furnace or air conditioner, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422. That's 263-0422. For honest, competent heating and cooling service, call Leonard Tinker at 263-0422.
I love driving to Newton to see the
Me
races.
too, but I only have to drive across town.
You live in Newton?
Yep, Newton's got small town charm and it's close to Des Moines. I love the safe, friendly neighborhoods and family-owned businesses. And Newton's wind energy industry is really taking off.
How'd you find your home?
Dan Kelly with First Choice Realty. And Dan helped me find my office too.
Next time, instead of just speeding by, I'll stop in and check out Newton.
Why don't you check out Newton? Call Dan Kelly at 641-521-9260 or Dan Kelly at mchsi.com.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome to the Fallon Forum, and I guess I don't need my headset until you give me a call at 855-244-0077. 855 is the toll-free number, 244-0077. If you're calling local, it's just plain old 244-0077. I want to thank, right from the outset here, Maddie Arrington, my producer, and now also helping with some of my program work. So if you've got an idea or a topic, a crisis, an issue you think should be addressed by this show, send it my way, and I'll make sure Maddie gets back to you about where we go from there. Plenty to talk about today. Brooke Howard, a local artist, joining me later in the show, and also Zach Bales Henry, a guy I've known for a long time who is now a realtor and a very avid commentator on political matters. It runs in his blood, I think. But first, I want to talk about this education summit happening and the conversations likely to drive the focus on public education at the State House starting Monday. I am troubled. I think the word I used in a Facebook post was irked. I am troubled. Our schools, there's always tweaking to do. There's always things that you can do to change it, improve it, responding to, different changing demographics and whatnot. But this continued drumbeat that our schools are failing, that the system is broke, that we need to, and what you hear beneath the the continual monotone beneath all that conversation is we need more focus on business, and more broadly, we need to start finding ways to privatize more and more of what happens in education. That is such the wrong direction. That is so wrong. And I'm next week, by the way, folks. Phil Rader with the Des Moines Public School District will be joining me. I'm looking forward to that conversation and getting his take on a number of issues, but particularly on what he thinks about the developing conversation at the State House. But I am very much troubled by this whole notion that schools should basically be incubators for businesses. That this is where corporate America, has so much input that they're basically churning out the kind of employees they want. Yeah, and again, there's no doubt about it. What you do in school can and should, well, maybe not even should, but can and does often affect what you end up doing professionally. I'll give you a few examples. One where it doesn't apply. That's me. My high school experience was pretty dismal. It was a private school. I would have done a lot better. I would have been so much happier and done so much better had I been in a public school system. No offense to those who sent me there, but it did not go very well for me. And I was jealous of my friends who had the opportunity to take a lot of courses that I never even knew existed in private school. My kids, the truth is I've never been to a day of public school in my life. And that is one reason why I am one of the strongest advocates I know for public education, because I saw what I got and what I should have had. I was able to compare. I will say this, at the college level, the private education I got, and that was a matter of choice at that point. I decided the colleges I really wanted to go to happened to be private. It was nothing against public education. They happened to be private. And I got a very good education there. And one of those was Drake University. But I see how well my own kids did here in the Des Moines Public School District, and I'm just offended that so many people. And again, I don't even know it's that many people, but it's a very vocal minority, and a very powerful minority that keep maligning our public education system. Again, my kids are doing great in their professional work, and one of them again directly connected to something he did in the public school system. And that's great. I don't think that happens all the time. I know for me it didn't. In fact, even at the college level, for me, I focused. This should come as no surprise, but I had a lot of interest. I was in music. I was in philosophy, religion, Spanish, and none of that really is directly relevant to a life of working for nonprofits, working in politics, and doing this kind of radio, TV broadcast journalism. So, to me, I could say, well, the value to me in education, both at the college level, especially for me at the college level, and again, to some degree, had I had better resources at the K through 12 level, the value was learning how to think, learning how to, the basics, obviously, reading, writing, math, but really learning how to engage my mind, how to study properly, how to dig into something. The truth is, learning how to interpret ancient texts in their original language was really, really good prep work for me in terms of my work in trying to understand the Iowa Code. That sounds funny, but there's a lot of truth to that. When you analyze ancient texts in the original tongue, you dig deep, and when you want to know what the Iowa Code is saying, and you don't want to screw it up by changing it the wrong way, you got to dig deep. So those kind of things are relevant. But my point is, what benefited me in my education was the broad, let me use the word, liberal arts, the liberal focus, the idea that education is about developing your mind, learning how to analyze, to study, to think, learning how to write. The first college I went to was somewhat of an alternative college, and its main focus, the first thing you had to do was to pass a writing exam that showed that you could logically put together ideas clearly, grammatically correct. I was able to do that my first semester. That was a forte of mine. But other people struggle with that because, you often don't get that focus in high school. So to me, when I hear that the state's business leaders are now, and again, this summit, I'm dying to go read Andrew Rasmussen's blog post on the summit, which I have not had a chance to do, but I suspect we have some similar concerns. He's quoted in today's paper saying, he's discouraged that the speakers cited standardized test scores when making their case for reforms. Yeah, and again, how you measure success is going to determine how you structure public education. And if you come up with standardized test scores as the means of measuring success, yeah, you're going to probably have an educational system that focuses on excelling in those tests. And again, this is a model that probably works really well for business. And I say, let me be clear, we're not just talking about all business. The folks who are really beginning to weigh in on structuring our schools more along the lines of preparing people for the workforce, to the exclusion of other priorities, not entirely, but far more than they should be. Those folks represent big industry. It's little entrepreneurs. I mean, I'm one. This is a business, the Fallon Forum. It's almost like a nonprofit business because I don't make much money at it, but I get by. And I have a lot of friends they're living their dream. They're doing what they want to do. They're doing something to give back to the community. They're providing a valuable service. They're getting by. Sometimes they get by quite well. Those aren't the folks involved in this conversation. Those of us who take our creative energy and create our own business, whether it's a talk show or an organic farm or a bookstore or a guy making T-shirts. Great story on Mike Draper recently. Well, whether it's any of those things, the key element to your success, I'm going to guess, in most cases, if not nearly all cases, is you learn how to think creatively. You learn how to engage your intellect, your mind. That you learn how you learn how to be educated and how to educate yourself. To me, that's the most important thing. And I see this movement, and I'm concerned. And we're going to continue to talk about this, and we're going to continue to keep our eyes wide open as the session convenes. Some branded this summit, by the way, as it was kind of a Branstad event. Really, it wasn't really. It was really Branstad's opportunity to get his ideas more front and center before the session started. And again, it looks more and more like we're going to have a conversation about how schools can be best suited for the business community. Again, look at the first paragraph of the article that kicked this off 2 days ago. Flip a coin. Is the biggest economic development issue going into the new legislative session commercial and industrial property tax reform? Or is it improving the education of Iowa's children, the state's future innovators, business owners, and workers? So that's what, yeah, certainly we are all innovators, business owners and workers, but gosh, we are so much more. And if that's all our schools are focused on, or the main thing they're focused on, we're in trouble. And again, I think also this focus is going to increase the pressure to privatize, if not the entire system. And eventually, I think that'll come. I think eventually there will be there'll be corporate interest positioned so powerfully within the public opinion and financially that they're going to push for an entire privatization of the system. I predict that will happen eventually. They will push for that. And they're already out there. I mean, this is a $600 billion a year industry. I put that in quotes. And folks want to see, there are corporate types who want that money. They want it in a bad way. And we've seen them go after it through vouchers, through various subsidies that take money away from the public schools, give it to folks for books, for transportation, for homeschooling. And again, I'm not against homeschooling. But don't start raiding the pool of public money we need to make our schools as excellent as possible and as focused on education as possible, on learning. And then beyond that, now we have the whole discussion about online schools. I mean, that to me is a boondoggle that we have to be very, very outspoken and vigilant about that, because that's going to continue to expand and expand in a very wrong direction. Anyway, there will be lots of conversation about this, not just at the State House, but here on this show. And again, I look forward to having Phil Rader with the Des Moines School District on this program next Monday. A couple other things I want to mention before my first guest shows up here is I do notice that under the Obama administration, America has spent $18 billion on immigration enforcement. The Obama administration spent more money on immigration enforcement last year, 2011, the fiscal year 2011, than all other federal law enforcement agencies combined. For example, the FBI, the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms, the Drug Enforcement Administration, and the U.S. Secret Service. More law enforcement money was spent on immigration, on busting, poor migrant workers. That's with our Democratic president. Okay, so $18 billion. Okay, that's $3.6 billion more than all the other elements of law enforcement in the federal government combined. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, it's hard to know. I mean, I want to get some folks, some of the folks who are really paying attention to the immigration reform issue. I want to get them involved with this conversation. My initial take is this is troubling, that we're spending more and more money cracking down on immigrants. I know we have to have a serious conversation about an intelligent immigration reform policy. Heck, we had one back when Ronald Reagan was president. Ronald Reagan signed the Immigration Reform and Control Act of 1986, and that, of course, legalized more than 3 million illegal immigrants and overhauled immigration laws. Now, could you imagine any president? Could you imagine? I mean, well, we've already seen it when Obama talks about amnesty or a pathway to citizenship for the 12 million illegals who are currently here. I mean, it gets raked over the coals. When George Bush tried to do something to that effect when he was president, right-wing talk radio took him out at the knees, and it took out the Republicans in the U.S. Senate. I mean, it's a conversation we aren't even able to have anymore. So I guess really it should be no surprise that the Obama administration is responding to that kind of public pressure by making that the most expensive element of law enforcement. Okay, yeah, interesting stuff. We'll talk more about that. Here's something new and different. Well, it's not that new. Breastfeeding. It's pretty old, actually. But this is new. A one-woman protest, an Oskaloosa resident named Chandra Browner, she showed up at Jordan Creek Town Center the other day. This is about on Saturday. She started up there in the afternoon, hoping to show people that breastfeeding in public is both normal and acceptable. Now, she planted herself in front of Hollister. Why Hollister? Well, because recently in Texas, in front of a Hollister, a Hollister store down in a mall in Texas, an employee of Hollister yelled at a woman who was reportedly was breastfeeding on a bench outside of that clothing store. Now that outraged people, and again, a lot of us agree. I think that this is a perfectly natural, important function. To tell somebody you have to cover up or go to a restroom, it is just so out of touch with a basic human need on both the baby's part and the mother's part that it's hard to fathom that people don't get that. Maybe if we get to the point where we have more women in elected office, this won't even be an issue anymore. Okay, Iowa law does guarantee breastfeeding mothers the right to feed their babies in any public place, but breastfeeding openly can still draw disdain and criticism from people, and that was obvious again in Texas. And this little protest went by without any flack or response at Jordan Creek Mall. So that much is good. Okay, folks, we're going to talk with Brooke Howard shortly. She's a local artist. I do want to thank the Sierra Club and the Iowa chapter of Physicians for Social Responsibility for sponsoring this program. I also want to thank Gateway Market for sponsoring this segment of our show. Gateway is at 20th and Woodland in Sherman Hill. It's my grocery store, folks. It ought to be yours as well because all the dollars you spend at Gateway are kept right here in the local community. They're not being shipped to, some corporate headquarters in, say, Texas. And you've got not just the grocery store, but you've got your cafe as well for breakfast, for lunch, for supper, and you've got a catering service that is second to none. A lot of rave reviews about Gateway Market's catering service. So please check them out, folks. Thank them for supporting the Fallon Forum, for supporting the alternative to right-wing talk radio, and again, keep your money local. We'll be back in a minute.